Presented by McDonald's of Glasgow, it's time for the Brown Sports Bag. From the heart of the Barrens, a weekly local sports machine. Alongside John Butler, here's your host, James Brown.
Well, John, we're back again this week, and let me tell you, we got a lot to talk about in a really short period of time. I know we're basically on this air here for an hour, 45 minutes or so once commercials run, but man, we had a week's worth of a lot of news, a lot of sports news, and we're really going to jump off with the Barren County Trojans football game on Friday night. I wrote a little story. I think some people read it. Maybe some people didn't. I don't know. You can find it on 104thescore.com. But one of the things I pointed out was that was Barron's first district win since I think it was 2017 against Grayson County. Now, 2018, they didn't play a district schedule. I explained all this in the story. But they moved up to that 6A class last year and got into the district with North Hardin, Central Hardin, and Meade County. And we talked about this last year. Those three programs have had some very good football teams in the last decade. I mean, North Hardin's one of the top two teams probably in the state right now. So it was an impressive win for the Trojans at Central Hardin on Friday night. They won 14-13. Probably even more impressive because their two losses this season, you know, they basically got beat in the trenches in those two games, and they just never really recovered from that in their losses to Hancock County and Greenwood. It kind of looked like that a little bit, at least for them offensively in the first half. They were down 13-0. But truthfully, the Trojans' defense played well all night, John.
Yeah, it was. That's a great bounce back win. It reminded me of the win last year against Greenwood.
Yeah.
In which the Trojans were behind at the end of the first half and got a key turnover, I think, by Tyler Bush and upset Greenwood. It's been a while since we beat Greenwood. And that was kind of a big deal because Greenwood was undefeated at the time.
Yeah. And
that win kind of really moved the team forward last year, gave them confidence. And this is a similar type of win against Central Hardin. And it's especially a big win after the losses to Greenwood, who's 5-0 again. Mm-hmm. And the Hancock County game was very disappointing, though Hancock has proven, I think, they're top 5 in the state in their class.
Yeah.
But coming off those two kind of disappointing losses, and not just losses, we didn't play well.
Right.
To go up in Central Hardin, and again, we didn't play very well offensively in the first half at all. Mm-hmm. The difference, though, was our defense kind of kept us in the game.
Yeah. And
they had struggled against Hancock and Greenwood. So to bounce back and to come back against a Central Hardin team who's I don't know how good Central Hardin is. I mean, they lost a close one. They were competitive against E-Town, and I know E-Town's good.
Yeah.
And Central Hardin is traditionally a very physical team. They lost a ton of seniors from last year, so we'll see down the road how many wins they come up with. But regardless of that, that's still a good win. Give Jamison Bowie credit. He kind of bounced back from probably a subpar first half, and he struggled against Greenwood, and I think he was 9 out of 19, ended up 117 yards, had a touchdown, big touchdown catch by Gage Allen.
Yes, that's right.
And Gage is a junior who started all of his sophomore year, but it's been a little quiet this year. Mm-hmm. And he had, it's good to see him bounce back with a touchdown catch that got us within one, and then Jamarcus Miley made the 2-point conversion. And Jamarcus played well. Gavin Withrow played well. He scored the first touchdown, and he had like 60 yards on the ground, and then the defense was very, very good. And to get a win on the road, especially when you struggle, I'd consider that a very good win.
Yeah, and a couple of things about that game. One thing I didn't have in the story, but it's a redemption for Gage Allen, that touchdown catch. Because earlier in the game, I think it was in the first half, he had a ball that went off his hands that was intercepted. And I was over there, taking photos and all, and he was upset with himself for that mistake. So it was good for him to get that opportunity to get it back, make that catch for the touchdown right in front of a defender. So it wasn't like he was wide open. I mean, he was covered. It was a good catch. And then Joseph Bradshaw, now – I don't know. I mean, he plays defense, but I don't know if they changed up a little bit for him because he was in the backfield all night with Central Hardin, had a couple of sacks, made a big defensive stop on fourth down that ended the game. Basically, Barron was able to run the clock out. He had a great defensive game.
And I was going to mention him because I had Joe last year in class, and I think the world of Joe. Great kid.
Yeah.
He's playing offense and defense this year. He's on the offensive line as well. Mm-hmm. And had a really, really good year last year, and that was by far his best game this year.
Yeah, so, I mean, he was there. Corbin Murphy had some great plays on defense and on offense a couple of times where he sat down in the zone and caught first down passes. So those things were the things making the tackles. And as Coach Arnett said after the game, that they were a lot more aggressive defensively. A lot of people getting to the ball and making tackles. That was something I think we didn't see in those two games that they lost. You know, we saw people miss tackles and people not being in the territory to make the follow-up tackle. That was the difference against Central Hardin. A lot of gang tackling, and making those passes buoy like to Murphy or buoy to Jamarcus Miley. Big one down the sideline. I think that one was on third down.
Yeah, it was.
And that ended up keeping that touchdown drive alive. That play, that was I think a 8 or 9 play drive. I think it started like at their own 13 or something like that. They were pinned back and deep in their territory. That
hadn't had it. And be fairness, since the Monroe County game, we've not had a lot of sustained drives.
Yeah, really.
We scored off kickoff returns and long pass plays to Jamarcus Miley. So we haven't seen a lot of that.
Yeah, it was a very good drive. Also, a couple of other people. You mentioned Gavin Withrow, but Ryan Shirley, he got in there, carried the ball quite
injured.
a bit.
Yeah, you know, he played he starts on both sides, and he probably carried the ball 18, 20 times against Monroe, but he got banged up. And it's a tough position to play 5A football when you're run the ball a lot and you're the middle linebacker.
Yeah.
I mean, there's so much contact. So he's been banged up, and I think the break, the week off against the cancellation of the Allen County game was probably beneficial to not only him but maybe the football team.
Yeah, I was going to say that losing that game turned out probably to be a blessing in disguise because it did let people get healthy or healthier, and it gave them some time to plan for Central Hardin. And one of the other things, you mentioned the Central Hardin side of this, they hadn't played for almost 3 weeks.
And not only have they not played, I don't think they've practiced.
Yes, because they were basically on a lockdown because about 3 weeks ago they had a positive test on their team.
Yeah.
And so that probably played a role in it. But nonetheless,
you still have to make plays, and we made plays.
Yeah, at their place.
That's correct.
Because usually teams can overcome that kind of thing if they're a really good team. And as we pointed out, Central Hardin did lose seniors, but I can tell you they got some good-looking players out there.
Yeah, well, they're a program that's not the elite of 6A, but they've been solid.
Yeah,
been very physical, very solid. They're normally in that 5, 6, 7 win area, and they generally compete with most everybody.
Yeah, and as you pointed out, I mean, they opened the season against Elizabethtown, which is a very good team, and competed real well. I think Elizabethtown won that game late, as a matter of fact. And so Barren moves on. They play at North Hardin this coming Friday. That'll be a tall task.
That'll be a tall task. North's undefeated, 2-0. I mean, not 2-0. They're number 2 in the state overall behind Trinity. Probably legit. Mm-hmm. They've got victories over Frederick Douglass.
Yeah, at Frederick Douglass, I think it was.
Belfry, defending 3A state champion.
At Belfry.
22-21.
Yeah.
And North Hardin has legitimate Division I players.
Yeah. They
are already committed to Division I schools.
Yeah, they and we all the people that we saw last year with them that we on the skills position side we'll see again on this coming Friday night.
Yeah, of course the defensive end, the Octavius, forgot his last name.
Yeah,
he's a freshman at Kentucky and played against Mississippi State.
Right,
got in the game as a true freshman.
Right. Yeah, talented squad they got there at North Hardin. A couple of other things that went on last week. We had I say last week, it was really Friday, Saturday, and then Tuesday, Wednesday of last week. Friday, Saturday, we had the girls' state golf tournament. We had 5 local players playing in it, and 3 of them made the cut, which is a tough thing to do, really, because of the way they set that cut up. There's a team, you have the team scores, but you have individual cuts, and so that cut line, I think, ended up around 85, I think, was the score. So Abby Lee, Nina McMurtry, and Bree Russell all made the cut. And Abby Lee finished tied for 10th in the state. This is her senior year. Nina McMurtry was, I think she tied for 21st, and Bree tied for 55. Bailey Birdsell from Glasgow shot 89. She was above the cut. And Taylor Gauntz, a senior for Barren, shot 97, and she was above the cut. But overall, I mean, it was it was good to have that number of players from around here in the state tournament.
And a side note too about the Glasgow girls team, they finished close behind South Warren in the region. Mm-hmm. South Warren finishes number 2 in the state.
Yeah, I think you and I talked about this last week.
Which kind of, if you just project, that probably tells me Glasgow girls was probably a top 5 team.
Yes, I would say they were. And we talked about this a little bit last week about the fact that, how they set up the tournament and this kind of stuff now so that it –
Yeah, I mean, they had teams in the girls' region that I'm trying to remember, like the winning score of Marshall County was like 318 or 305.
Yeah.
You had some other schools who were there who had won regions other places, the mountain area and other places, that were like 450.
Yeah.
I mean, they were 150 strokes behind.
Yeah, and it's –
And I understand where it's not that I don't think they shouldn't be there.
Right.
That's fine, but I do think it's probably helpful. I'm not a big fan of cutting out opportunities. That's what's odd.
Yeah.
So I still think they're better off by having 2 teams from every region, maybe have a qualifying score.
Mm-hmm.
So listen, if you're second in a region and you're 200 over par, maybe you shouldn't be invited.
Right.
But I'm not a big fan of, which is the weird move of the KHSAA. They're normally into offering more opportunities rather than cutting out opportunities. That seems strange.
Well, and, they made that pace of play argument about why they made the cuts, but I just think they did the cuts the wrong way. One, there are 2 things. I had a little Twitter discussion with some folks last week about this. The first thing is, and you and I have talked about this, the KHSAA tries to mirror basketball with every sport.
Yeah.
And I just don't think that's the way to go. I think each sport has its own system that works for it because not every sport is created the same way.
Right.
And I think, that's true for golf. That's probably true for something like cross country and track. I mean, you just can't match them up in ways. And so with the golf thing, I'm with you. I mean, I think you should take your best teams and then maybe even not necessarily more so than your best individuals, because they didn't actually shrink the actual size of the state tournament by much with the way that they did it, because they added more individuals.
Right.
It used to be 2 teams each region and the next 5 individuals, right?
Right.
And now it's a team and the next 8 individuals. So really you cut,
Two.
you cut 2 players basically out of the whole situation. And I don't think that really changed a whole lot in terms of pace of play and all that, as far as I could tell.
Right.
All it did was cut out opportunities for some of these teams, such as Glasgow. I think that's one of them. The other one is the one in the Lexington area. I think that's a really good region as well.
Well, yeah, the Louisville area too.
Yeah. I mean, when you get down to it, there are 3 areas of the state that, especially on the girls' side and some different areas in the state on the boys' side, that are really good. And you're kind of punishing those areas and giving other people those people's opportunity in a way.
Right.
It's very un-American, John.
I agree with that. I agree. I'm with you. We agree.
Yeah, but anyway, good for our folks who got to go there. And last week also, Jamison Corbin from Barren County, he was the only local boy who qualified for the state tournament. He got to day 1. Good experience for him as a freshman, John.
Yes, no question about it. And hopefully that experience will I'm sure it will help him. He's just a freshman, and he'll come back even better, stronger next year.
Yeah. Real quick, back to the girls' side of things. Yes, Bree Russell and Taylor Gauntz and Maddie Anderson were seniors for Barren County. I think they have a good young group that's coming up. And for Glasgow, 2 of those 3 qualifiers were juniors. Now you lose Abby Lee, but you're gonna bring back Grayson Flatt, who was playing real well at the end of the year, and they've got some good golfers coming up. So it looks good for the next year or even 2, maybe, for both of these programs to hopefully get here as a regional winner, or at least have a whole group of players again qualify.
Yeah, and that's been the tradition. Glasgow goes back a long time in girls' region, so they normally just kind of reload. But Barren has been really good the last 10 years as well.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, so it's very good to see that region. And then the other thing is the soccer playoffs. They begin tonight with the Barren County boys versus Allen County Scottsville at 6 o'clock over at the soccer complex.
That's correct.
I will be over there.
3-team district, Barren, Allen, and Glasgow. And in the girls, it's only 2.
Yeah.
Barren and Glasgow.
Talking about reshaping things by the KHSAA, they redid the soccer districts and tried to match them up to the basketball districts, and so...
Except they moved Monroe out.
Yeah, I know. It doesn't...
Yeah, so that's strange. Monroe, Russell County, and Clinton County are now in their own pod.
Yeah, so, I mean, I guess Cumberland County needs to add some soccer, and maybe there's somebody else over there. Metcalf, they need soccer.
There you go.
But, yeah, so Allen added a boys' team, but they still don't have a girls' team yet. That's why we only have the Glasgow girls and Barren County girls playing each other for the district championship tomorrow night at 6 at the soccer complex. Both will go on to the regional tournament.
Takes that pressure off.
Yeah, it's just about pride now.
Yep.
But, I mean, if you look back to last year, Glasgow won the 2 regular season games. Emma Hughes hit a big kick for Barren to win the district championship last year. They're only having to play one game this year in the district that counts.
Yeah, because that's the COVID deal.
Yeah, that's COVID deal. I think that's going to be the same case in basketball.
I don't know.
Had said that may be the case in basketball.
I've not seen that.
Okay. We will. When we find out more about that, we'll let you know. So back on track. So I guess it is bragging rights. If you look, Barren won the game earlier this year with Glasgow on the girls' side. So I'm sure Glasgow would like to get revenge for the loss earlier this season and the district final loss last year. But back to the boys' side, I imagine Barren, they beat Allen County 11-1 earlier in the season. I would expect to see a Glasgow-Barren final on Wednesday at 6 o'clock at the soccer complex.
That's the expectation.
Yeah, that's the expectation. And I expect that to be a really good game because Barron's played a lot better after they lost to Glasgow 3-0 earlier in the season. So that's what it's shaping up. That's how those playoffs are looking. I'm not sure what the crowd restrictions are for the soccer complex. John, do you have any idea about that part?
I do not. I mean, it's the same rules. Got to wear a mask, temperature checks, and if you want to get in quicker, go online to the Barren County Sports, and you can go ahead and fill out your information and just hand it to us before you get there.
Oh, well, very good.
Yeah.
Yes.
So that's an easy way to do it.
I will try to track that down and put that on Twitter before.
Okay.
Tonight.
But since it's outdoors and there's a lot more spacing, I don't know if I haven't talked to Warren about it. I'm guessing no.
Okay. Yeah, so, I mean, I don't know about the crowd tonight, but I'd imagine the crowd Tuesday and Wednesday will be pretty good.
I would think so, yeah.
All right, this is Brown Sports Bag brought to you by McDonald's of Glasgow. We'll be right back.
Presented by McDonald's of Glasgow, it's back to the studio with James and John, the Brown Sports Bag.
Well, John, our college football teams, those here in the state of Kentucky that we generally pay the most attention to because they're the 3 Division I programs, had a fascinating weekend. For Kentucky, it was fascinating in the sense they won the game, and the team they beat was also the team that upset LSU at the start of the season, but maybe LSU actually isn't all that good.
LSU's not any good.
Yeah, their defense is horrible.
Horrible.
And Mississippi State's offense is apparently horrible as well. But Kentucky played well on the defensive side. It was just an amazing game for them on Saturday.
Yeah, LSU goes from putting up over 600 yards and 50 points against LSU to not scoring an offensive touchdown against Kentucky, whose defense has struggled.
Yeah.
24-2, and I mean, they had. I think Kentucky had 6 interceptions, and a pathetic offensive performance for Mississippi State. I know Coach Leach. There's probably nothing that could be any worse than for him to watch his offense play that bad. I know because he's an offensive genius, and they were pathetic. And now it's not like Kentucky was any good offensively. Kentucky was terrible offensively.
Yeah,
Terry Wilson was bad.
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 And the funny thing about that game, in a lot of ways, to me, you mentioned that Mike Leach. I mean, that's the kind of offensive performance that make him jump off a building, probably. It kind of reminds me of when Hal Mummy was at Kentucky. It's like, yeah, but you lost the game, but we scored 67 points, That's kind of how Mike Leach thinks.
Oh, yeah. I mean, it'd be like the I don't know, the Beatles not being able to sing or or Britney Spears not being able to dance or something, I don't know. I'm just randomly thinking of things. Or Mike Leach's team not being able to throw. You just don't. You don't see that.
Yeah, and so Kentucky gets an SEC win, which is a good thing.
Which they needed.
Yes, they needed that. And the
ugly game, though. Golly.
Yeah,
trying to watch that game was. And all you had to do is turn the channel, and any other game you watched that game was 45-42, 65-58, triple overtimes, and then Kentucky was 24-2.
Well, and the Mike Leach quarterback situation kind of leads us to the WKU quarterback situation because Mike Leach's guy there, was he Stanford transfer, and he lit up the world against LSU, and then he's been
awful,
the worst quarterback probably in the country since then, because he does throw interceptions. Meanwhile, Pegram for WKU has not really looked good yet for WKU. On the upside, he doesn't throw interceptions.
No, he does not. He takes care. He does. He had a couple fumbles.
Yes, he did have 2 fumbles on Saturday
right.
in their lopsided loss to Marshall.
But Western, that was not a very good performance. I think it's fair to say they got blown out at home by, I think, another good Marshall team. I mean, every loss they've had, I've said, well, I think the team was pretty good.
Yeah.
Except for Louisville. I don't think Louisville is very good, but Louisville's a lot more talented than Western, to be fair. But, yeah, I mean, get beat 38-14. At one time it's 38-0 in the third quarter. And just offensively, just Western's not – it's just not playing well. And anytime that your offense doesn't play well, people look at the quarterback because the quarterback's such a big component of the offense. And, again, I think what's puzzling a little bit or surprising is that this is what Coach Helton is kind of known for, is good offensive play.
Yeah.
And,
he's another one of those guys that offensive performances like this make him want to jump off a building.
Yeah, and it's important to him.
Yeah.
It's important to him. And that's one of the reasons why the previous coach was fired, because offensively they were bad.
Yeah.
And Helton, who was on the staff with Jeff Brom's staff, came back in, and they did a great job last year. But this year, and like I said, I told you off air, I'm pretty much giving everybody a pass this year, just because of COVID. It affects teams differently, whether it's not having the players because of COVID or lack of practice or however you want to do it. It's just it's certain teams have really struggled, and other teams offensively have exploded across the country. So it's kind of a puzzling deal, to be perfectly honest with you.
Yeah, it is. It's hard to know why some teams are doing so poorly, especially on the offensive side. I mean, and
other teams are putting up massive amounts of points.
Well, and I go back to the fact that
experience is a big deal.
Experience and simplicity. I just think it's a year where you've got to simplify everything, because you can't have complexity, especially if you don't have the experience that's been accustomed to what you're doing.
Right, because you've lost the practice time.
Yeah, you've lost the practice time, and when you bring in new quarterbacks each year, which is what WKU has done the last couple of years, the guys who end up starting.
Yeah, even though the system is the same offense coordinator and coach, the system should be similar, but if you're breaking in a new quarterback like Mississippi State, struggling, Western struggling, it could lead to some struggles.
Yeah, and so that kind of winds up with a situation where at the end, they put in Kavaris Thomas, and he throws a touchdown to Dalvin Smith.
Yeah, that's Dalvin's second touchdown.
Yeah, they've thrown 8 touchdowns. He has a quarter. No, they've thrown 7 touchdowns. He has a quarter of them. He's caught 2 of them.
And good for Dalvin. That's the good part.
Yeah, and of course that meant a lot of people were saying throw that man the ball more.
Sure, why not?
But also, also the bad side is Pegram's struggling obviously, but then people are upset with the lack of defense for WKU. But if you can't threaten the other team or keep the ball or make plays, your defense is only going to last so long against a team that does have consistency and can play football.
Right. It's their defense didn't play terrible, but it didn't play at an elite level either.
Yeah.
I'm sure it's tough down on the hill. And in football it's a tough game. For the most part, the only real fun with football is the competition on Friday night for high school, Saturday for college, and Sunday for the pros, because there's not a ton of fun with football practice.
Yeah.
And so when you have that one day and then you don't play well, and you don't play well in several weeks, then it's difficult to keep a team motivated and keep a team together oftentimes, because people, it's no fun to practice, and when you get beat and you don't play well, that's no fun either.
Yeah, and this really is kind of a gap year for WKU and for Louisville. They both have second-year coaches who came in and changed the tone of the program when they came in, and I think that carried them through that first season and made them more successful than their talent level was. Maybe the offensive talent level for WKU and the defensive talent level for Louisville, they didn't stop anybody last year either, but they at least seemed to compete a little better.
Right.
And, Georgia Tech just wore them out on Friday night. I mean, they couldn't do anything. And so this gap year, especially with the other challenges you've already mentioned, seems to be really showing up for these two programs. And, I mean, Louisville's defense is a shambles.
It is, and it's tough to watch. I mean, they were tough to watch last year, but they were better last year than they were 2 years ago, which they didn't even try half the time.
Right, yeah.
So they were at least tried, but Louisville was winning games 50-40 last year, and their offense is still good, but they're not putting up 40 to 50 points.
Yeah.
So the defense just struggles to make tackles. Oftentimes they give up these huge chunks of yards, and the most frustrating thing is they cannot get a stop on third down.
Yeah.
They just cannot stop anybody on third down, and Louisville's defense has been a problem for several years, and it's ultimately it's not necessarily a scheme problem; it's a talent problem.
Yeah.
And if Coach Satterfield to succeed, his offensive game plan, his offense is good enough, and he's going to be able to recruit, I think, good enough offensive players. The key is, can he get enough defensive help to be competitive against the better teams in the ACC?
Yeah, and this year without the bunny games, and I guess you can look at the Louisville from the Louisville perspective. WKU would be a bunny game. I mean, it really isn't in a lot of ways, but it should be ACC versus CUSA.
Yeah, it's a game you should win.
Yeah, but without the ability to get the bunny games and just week in, week out grind of in-conference play, especially here in the ACC or the SEC, you don't get to cover up any weaknesses and, by winning games easily.
Not only cover up, but you don't get the practice. Sometimes you can play an inferior team, and you can actually work on things.
Yeah.
And you're just exposed against the better teams.
Yeah, and so as we're seeing, I think with the SEC and the ACC, and I really don't pay attention to the Big 12, but it's probably the case there, playing all these in-conference games, it's just that's what makes it look so inconsistent.
Yeah, well, the SEC looks like the Big 12 right now. I mean, outside of Kentucky's defensive performance, Georgia's been good defensively. I mean, teams are giving up incredible amounts of points.
Yeah, and that is really more surprising to me than anything. I mean, I don't know.
Well, everybody's gone to the spread for the most part.
But still, you would think, we talked about this before, a lot of times, especially in short practices or early in the season, the defenses are ahead of the offenses, but that's not the case this year.
Well, you got to practice tackling.
I think that is the key there. You go back to what you do in practices, you work on, I guess, dealing with the trauma of getting hit or hitting people.
Yeah.
And without that extended practice, and especially they had to go so long without even having contact practices of the type they're used to having, that seems to be it. I mean,
and who knows? It seems like it's perhaps young kids growing up want to be offensive players.
Well, I mean, yeah.
I mean, seriously, they want to be receivers, quarterbacks, and backs rather than defensive players.
Mm-hmm.
And right now, the offense is and it's been like this way in the last couple of years. There's a big trend where offensive football, and even at the pro level, is better than defensive football in a lot of ways.
Yeah.
And if you can't get to the quarterback,
oh yeah, you're toast.
You're toast.
Well, and I mean, it's just the college football landscape at the moment is very interesting by the combination of the scores we're seeing and the challenges we're seeing, and this interconference play just as. Well, let me put it this way. They put out an AP top 10 or top 20, 25, whatever it is. They put out these polls. They've never been more meaningless than they are right now because week to week, you just really don't know what a team's going to look like.
No, you don't. You really don't. And it's I think it's fair to say Alabama is good.
Mm-hmm.
Clemson's good.
Yeah.
Probably Georgia. After that, the Big Ten hadn't even played. I assume Ohio State's good, but it's an assumption.
Yeah. We don't even know how many of their people will actually play.
Yeah, it doesn't look like the Big 12 has a strong team.
No, that is a hot mess in the Big 12.
Yeah.
I mean, even when you're watching a game like the Oklahoma-Texas game?
Right.
I mean, just that whole game was a hot mess.
Right.
It didn't matter what happened.
It is hard to see who's who's really good. Mm-hmm. I'm sure somebody is, but it's hard to see.
Yeah, I guess, they'll let us know.
I think Florida's good, even though they got beat.
Yeah. Well, when we talked about this last week, I was not convinced. I was convinced of Florida's inconsistencies.
Well, they can score.
Yeah, they can do that. All right, that's a Brown Sports Bag brought to you by McDonald's of Glasgow. We'll be right back.
Presented by McDonald's of Glasgow, it's back to the studio with James and John, the Brown Sports Bag.
John, how did we get here in the Major League Baseball playoffs where we still have to hear about the Houston Astros? I mean, I just knew there was no way they were going to be here at this point. And they went 29-31. Is that what that was?
Yeah, but they expanded the playoffs, and that got them in.
Yeah, thankful. Anyway, hopefully the Rays will finish them off here. They won the first game 2-1. And that's really not the series I was looking forward to. I'm actually pretty interested in this Braves-Dodgers series because I really didn't the Braves looked like they were headed in the right direction last year, but I really didn't expect them to be here when you get down to it.
Well, I mean, they were good last year.
They were.
They made the playoffs last year and got knocked off by St. Louis in a close series. So Braves they got tremendous hitting, young hitting too. Probably got one of the better players in the league in that Freddie Freeman.
Yeah.
And their pitching is young, and they pitched several shutouts so far in the playoffs. Now, in fairness, they beat Cincinnati and the Marlins, but you beat who you have to beat.
Yeah.
So now they're going against the favorites. I mean, the Dodgers are the prohibited favorite to win. The only thing that the Dodgers have everything.
Yeah.
Except for one thing, and they're having trouble at the back end of their rotation. I mean, the back end of the closer, and that's a big problem.
Yeah,
because their closer for years, Kinsley Jansen, has all of a sudden has lost it, and so that's a little tricky area because right now most of the teams that are really good in the last 4 or 5 years have been strong at the back end of the rotation, not the starting pitching, but it's been the 7th, 8th, and 9th. Relief pitching has been huge, and that's the one area that the Dodgers are a little shaky. But if any team deserves it, if you're going to say, well, this team deserves it, which is kind of hard to say because they all put the work into it, it's probably the Dodgers because they've been to the World Series, 3 straight years maybe, 2 or 3 straight years, and they've gotten beat in 7 innings, and they've been on the verge of winning these championships, but they hadn't won. And I like the Dodgers. Now, I grew up at first being a Reds fan, and then I went from the Reds to the Braves after cable came to Greensboro, Kentucky, and I could watch the Braves every game.
And they were good at that time.
And they were good, and I still like the Braves. But something about the Dodgers I like. I like their makeup. I like their manager. I just like how the Dodgers play. They play smart. I love Mookie Betts. I think he's a tremendous baseball player.
Yeah.
And, I wouldn't shed a tear if the Dodgers won, even though they're the favorite, and I normally don't pull for favorites.
So do you think it would be more special for the Dodgers to get a chance to beat the Astros, or would you rather see maybe the Braves win the championship a second time in their history?
Well, it would be, I think from a ratings perspective, the Dodgers and the Astros has a lot of juice to it.
Yeah, it does.
Because of the Astros cheating that they got caught last year against the Dodgers.
Yeah. So, a lot of people think the Dodgers owe them one.
That'd burn a lot of juice.
Yeah.
I don't think the Astros are going to beat the Rays. The Rays almost look like a team of destiny to me. We'll see. I think the Dodgers will end up beating the Braves, but in baseball it comes down to who gets hot pitching wise, and you don't know. So I don't know who I'm rooting for. I'm not rooting for the Astros. I don't hate them, but I can't be for a team that they got away with cheating in the sense they didn't get their title taken away from them. They the general manager and coach was fired, but the players, nothing really happened to them other than the embarrassment and scorn. I like the Rays. I like how they play. I like how they do things. Low budget, but boy, they got good baseball players.
Yeah, I think the better World Series would be the Rays and the Dodgers. I think the better story would be the Dodgers and the Astros.
No question about it.
And I truthfully, I don't want to see the Astros get there. I didn't want to see them here. I really, if you were to go by college rules, I don't think they should have been eligible for the postseason when you get right down to it. I mean, I know that's punishing people who may not have been involved in the cheating, but nonetheless,
Well, most of them that are on the team, the ones that are cheating are still on the team.
Yeah, so I mean, It's not like in college where they don't hand down the penalty until 4 years after everybody's left, and you got a whole new crew of people, and usually you new coaches and everything, and the people who didn't do anything are being punished.
But they're not going to do that in the pros.
I know.
The pros in the professional leagues, they don't cancel games. Mm-hmm. They may suspend a game, but they're not canceling games, and they're not taking away championships. Not at that level.
Yeah. Well, I don't know that they should have taken away. I think they should not be allowed to be there.
Okay. Well, they don't do that either.
I know, but I mean,
it's called contracts.
Yeah.
That's right.
trying to dodge legal liability and such. But I do. I guess I root for the idea of. I would rather see the Rays and Dodgers just because I just think that'd be a better World Series, and I just don't want to see the Astros even get there, even if it would be an amazing story to write about, the opportunity for the Dodgers to give them a black eye or whatever. I don't mean that literally. I mean that figuratively. So, there's that. Meanwhile, the NBA season wrapped up. The Bubble Lakers won the championship.
Did they? When was this?
Last night.
Oh, I didn't even know. Did they play?
They did.
Yeah. I'm kidding. I probably didn't watch 2 minutes of it, I'll be honest with you. It's an interesting time of year because you got NFL football going on, you got NBA championships, and you got baseball playoffs. I mean, it's never happened that way.
Right.
And to be honest with you, I watched very little of the NBA, just very, very little. Just, I don't know, just wrong time of year, I guess. And to be honest with you, it's LeBron, and it's kind of the same old story. Mm-hmm. I mean, great player, great player. But he finds a way to match himself up with other great players.
Yeah.
And I'm just not a big fan of trading all your team away to get another great player and to win a title.
But it doesn't work for everybody.
Well, who else does that?
Well, I mean, a lot of people have attempted to do it.
Well, I mean, that's hard to do, to be honest with you.
It is. I'm with you on that. I actually did not watch any of the finals this year. I watched all of the finals last year. Yeah. I was a lot more engaged with that, and that really didn't have anything to do with the nature of the world at that time.
Right.
It just had to do with the interest in the team.
Yeah.
But I did watch a lot more of the conference finals than I did last year because I thought they were more interesting.
The quality of play was good.
Yeah.
But it just wasn't that interested, I'll be honest with you. Just being in a bubble worked, but it took a lot of, basketball has a lot of intensity with crowd because they're right on top of you. And that, quite frankly, wasn't there. And Miami was a good story, but they weren't near good enough to compete with, Anthony Davis, LeBron James. And to be honest with you, Rondo was really good.
Yeah, he had a great series. And I would say if there's anything out of the NBA Finals that was interesting to me, it was Anthony Davis and Rajon Rondo. Because despite how much I disliked Rajon Rondo as a college player, I have liked him a lot more as an NBA player just because he is a very smart player.
He's extremely smart. 2 titles, one at Boston when he was 21 and one in L.A. at 34.
Yeah. So, I mean, good for him. And I thought Anthony Davis, outside of maybe 1 game or 2 games in the playoffs, had a real breakout year.
He did. And I wonder how many people, this just gives you the power of LeBron. Mm-hmm. I bet you that a large amount of people couldn't even tell you the head coach of the Lakers. I mean, seriously.
Yeah, they had three.
It almost seems like it's insignificant.
Well, and maybe that makes Frank Vogel a very good head coach because nobody knows who he is. More people are familiar with the fact that Jason Kidd was an assistant than they were Frank Vogel was a head coach.
Yep.
And maybe that says a lot,
clearly,
too.
I mean, it's hard to coach great players.
Yeah.
Sometimes you just have to stay out of their way or don't anger them.
Unless you're maybe Phil Jackson or Pat Riley.
But Phil Jackson stayed out of their way. It was more of a mental deal with him.
Yes, he was a motivator more than he was anything else.
Yeah. Now Riley was totally different.
Oh yeah.
Right.
But, no, he was all in your grill.
But yeah, I mean, it's LeBron just completely controls the game. Mm-hmm. I mean, he's great. And he's better now than he was when he's 25, 26. Yeah. He's a smarter player, and he's got a better jumper.
One of the things that's interesting is that I think the actual talent level in the league is probably better than it's ever been, just individual talents. But it's hard to even know that because LeBron James overshadows everyone by so much.
Yep.
So much of the oxygen talking about the NBA is taken up by him that we don't even get to see so many other players. I mean, you look at
Yet he needs a great player.
Yeah. Well, I mean, to win a championship, but he took 2 Cleveland teams to the finals that were bad.
That's true.
I mean, and he was by himself on both those teams.
Well, I don't know by himself. Kevin Love and those people are really good. too.
Well, but Kevin Love didn't play in those NBA finals.
The first one. Well, he did on the second one.
Well, that's true.
He did. But it's I don't know. It's funny. I've just got mixed feelings on LeBron because they weren't very good last year with LeBron.
Well, he didn't play the final 34 games.
He didn't play
28 games. I think he didn't play after game 54.
But they were just barely 500 when he was playing too.
Yeah.
So it was almost like a give-up year in one sense.
It was, and plus last year he was atrocious defensively.
He was, and he came back refreshed and. Listen, he's top 5 player of all time.
Yeah.
There's no question about it. I mean, you can't argue that he's not. He's in the top 5. I don't put him the best, but, there's an argument to be made. He's probably 1 or 2.
Yeah. One of the things, I go back to this, what I just said about him, I can't wait for him to retire because I look back when Kobe Bryant was around, and Kobe Bryant also took up a lot of oxygen in the room. But you had other big personalities or big teams. So you had Tim Duncan in the Spurs.
Right.
You had Kevin Garnett in the Celtics. You had the Pistons that came along during his time that kind of restructured things, and I mean beat the Lakers, in the finals and that kind of stuff. It's not just that you had other teams, but you had other personalities that gained time. And it's just that LeBron James is so much a focus in the NBA that it really kind of detracts, I think, from a lot of the other stuff going on that is good stuff happening in the NBA in terms of players, the way the game's played by some teams.
Coaching's good, too.
Coaching's good. Mm-hmm. I mean, if
a lot of good young players, too. I think the league's going to be fine when we get back to some sense of normalcy.
Yeah, and I think there's some good players coming up as well.
Mm-hmm.
Anyway, congratulations, LeBron James.
If you're listening.
If you're listening. I mean, I'm sure he listens. I mean, why would he not?
Yeah, that's right.
And the Lakers. but especially Rajon Rondo and Anthony Davis. Rajon from Louisville. There were a lot of people with actual Kentucky ties around that LA team.
That's true.
So if you don't have to be a LeBron fan, but you can be a fan of the Lakers winning that championship because of some of the connections to our state.
Including the coach.
That is correct, Frank Vogel. All right, this is Brown Sports Bag brought to you by McDonald's of Glasgow. We'll be right back.
Presented by McDonald's of Glasgow, it's back to the studio with James and John, the Brown Sports Bag.
Well, John, I'm going to start off this final segment by congratulating another person who I know is a longtime listener, Romeo Cornell. WKU grad, I believe that is correct.
Got his first win as an interim coach for the Texans.
Yeah.
Well, first win he's been a coach in the past.
That's right. He's been a coach of the past of the Cleveland Browns.
Yes.
But yeah, so got a win for the Texans. Good for him.
Good guy, genuine good guy, everybody says.
Yep. And so, that's good. So maybe it was the coaching with the Texans, but like we talked about with the college football, this NFL season is very fascinating in several ways. One is you're not even sure who's going to be playing when the game kicks off.
Yeah, I think it's a little weird what's going on because Virginia Tech has played games with 30 on the COVID out, 21 this past one. They had 19 that couldn't play because of COVID, and they keep playing. Uh-huh. And the NFL, if they get one, it's up in the air. So I don't know what's the difference. Something that's weird, to be honest with you.
Yeah,
but the NFL just suspends games. They're not canceling any yet. They'll just move them around.
Yeah, the Titans and the Bills is a prime example. It was supposed to be played on Sunday, I think.
And then Tuesday.
Yeah.
And several other games have been shifted to weeks ahead, and they've changed schedules. So the NFL is going to get their games in.
Yeah. Yeah, and so that kind of like you look down at the standings and you're like, you got 5 unbeaten teams at the moment. One of them won't be unbeaten maybe after tonight. because after Tuesday night, because the Bills and Titans are both undefeated, and they'll be playing Tuesday at 6. You can hear that game on 105.3 The Point, by the way. And then you've got the Steelers are 4-0. The Seahawks are 5-0, miraculously.
Green Bay's
4-0. And I think of all these undefeated teams, maybe the Steelers actually look like a team that should be undefeated.
Well, they got the best balance.
Yes.
They're defensively, they're really good, and offensively they've been good enough, and they've got a proven winner at quarterback.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, because, I mean, and now, I don't know, maybe the Packers are really that good too. I mean, they are definitely that good offensively.
Right.
I don't know if we know yet whether or not they're that good defensively. And then the Seahawks, I mean, Russell Wilson keeps winning football games.
Yeah, he's a great player.
And all you can do is shrug your shoulders at it. I mean, it's like this, all right? Yesterday, the Vikings had them dead to rights.
Yep.
They went for it on 4th down with the theory of with less than 2 minutes played, the theory of keeping the ball out of Russell Wilson's hands. They got stopped.
Well, yeah, and
maybe
normally I would agree with that move.
Yeah.
But a field goal would have made it an 8-point game.
Yes.
Which would mean you couldn't lose in regular season.
Right.
You couldn't lose, and it would force not only Seattle to go the length of the field just for a touchdown, but also to do the double to get the 2-point conversion. So I understand why he went for it, but I thought it was the wrong move.
I did too. I tell you another thing about that. Before that, I think they had run 5, 6, maybe even 7 consecutive plays to the left side.
Right.
Like when they were running the football, and they were just running through the Seahawks.
And in fairness, now I don't know how many people actually watched the 4th down play. The back made a wrong cut. The hole was a monster hole. If he just bounced it to the hole, he cut it back inside, which it's probably taught if you need a yard, just put your head down and get the yard. But the play was actually blocked well. He made the wrong read.
Yeah, he ran to the defender.
That's exactly right. And that's how with coaching is oftentimes you get second guessed depending on the result of the play. Mm-hmm. I didn't think it was the right call regardless of what happened.
Yeah.
But actually, if the team had executed a little bit better, if the running back had ran to the right spot, the game would have been over.
Well, and the Vikings are another team. I think they have 1 win, but you can look at them and say
2 wins. They're 2-3.
Okay, they look like a good team in so many ways, and yet they're another team that just finds a way not to win games in their 3 losses. I think it is. They've just been rough in those losses because you can see the talent they have, and it looks like good talent.
Yep, they do. You're right.
Meanwhile, also the Falcons went ahead and fired their head coach. They had seen enough, a Super Bowl blown out win.
Yeah, and they were not very good last year either.
Yeah, they weren't good. They were a team that just kept finding ways to lose. It was amazing to watch them play football. Yeah,
bad play by the quarterback. Matt Ryan has not played well. They just that was not an unexpected move. I don't think it'll help them much this year,
No.
but still, you could see that writing on the wall. Probably did the head coach a favor.
Yeah, he was ready to get out of there, I'm sure. The Jets are winless. The Giants are winless. The Jets are real bad.
And I think the other big NFL news is Dak Prescott. It's he's already had his surgery, broke his ankle and dislocated. They took him immediately and did surgery, which is rare to me. And it's tough, but he turned down over $100 million guarantee. Mm-hmm. He was offered approximately $34 to $35 million a year, and he turned it down. He's playing on a 1-year contract, and I never understood that. Yeah. Because in an NFL, which is such a dangerous game, I think you have to take the guaranteed. And I know he wanted $40 million probably, but I think $100 million is enough for anybody for generation after generation. He turned it down, and I never did understand that.
Yeah, and it was a gruesome injury, and I hope to see him bounce back quickly because I actually like him as a player.
I do too.
All right, this is Brown Sports Bag brought to you by McDonald's of Glasgow. We'll be back next week. Get on out to the soccer complex if you like.
Thanks for listening, and be sure and join James and John once again next Monday at 4 for the Brown Sports Bag, a local weekly sports machine presented by McDonald's of Glasgow.
Coming soon to your FM dial, this is Fox Sports Radio, WCDS Glasgow, AM 1230.